Welcome to episode 41 of the Free Spirit Academy podcast with artist and intuitive Lindsay King. Free Spirit Academy is about you being fully you. My name is Randy Moss, and I'm an eating psychology coach and Kundalini yoga teacher, bringing you conversations about freedom. Largely from rigid diets and painful body image, but ultimately it's about the freedom to be yourself. This is about honoring our own bodies and our purest self-expression. Welcome to the podcast. So before I introduce this talk, I'm going to do a little bit of an intro to the intro because I'm feeling a little bit awkward because I got braces put on my teeth last week and I feel like I have a little bit of a lisp. In fact, I 100% do. So I almost decided not to do this and then decided to get over it and go ahead and do the thing. So here we are. So if I sound a little bit not like myself, that's all that is. But let's dive into this. I talk in almost every episode about intuitive eating, and it actually was my intention to bring up food in this chat, but somehow we never got to it. My friend Lindsay is an intuitive painter and just a beautiful, intuitive human. And when we sat down to talk about recording this, one of the first things that came up was how our diets had naturally shifted to this veganish, plant-based sort of thing without effort, which led to a whole conversation about surrender and listening to the body and not needing to force change, but listening for when change wants to happen. And I was like, great, we'll easily be able to tie all of this in, but we got going and there was so much good stuff and it never happened. I have known Lindsay since high school, and you'll hear about our shared history in a conservative church, the missionary work that we did together, and how very much has changed since then, but also just how similar our paths have been. And it's also remarkable that we both went to a Seventh-day Adventist boarding school in Colorado, and now we've ended up in the same town in eastern Washington, a town with a lot of Adventists, though neither of us are part of the church any longer. And I had no idea that she lived here when we moved here a few years ago, and I was in a Goodwill one day, and I was like, is that Lindsay? And I wasn't sure, so I awkwardly hid my face, like one does. But eventually I wandered into the salon that she works at, and we connected after a whole bunch of years. And we've been hanging out ever since. So I also do want to apologize for the sound quality of the conversation. It was the first time I tried to travel and record a conversation outside of my usual space, and it definitely compromised the results. So I won't be doing that again unless I know how to set it up well. But if you're patient enough to listen through a sketchy audio, here's some of what we dive into. We talk about our shared history and Lindsay's experience of feeling like a fraud in religion, the importance of aligning with who you really are and using your voice, even if it means you're not everybody's cup of tea, the body as an intelligent tool. And this might have been my favorite part of the conversation because I'm always interested in how people describe their experience of listening to the body. Lindsay's take on the word power and how feeling grounded in her own power has led her to the desire for more collaboration. And we'll talk about her fascinating work doing soul essence paintings, where she, in her words, paints the relationship between the subconscious and what is seen. I hope you enjoy this conversation with Lindsay King. So I've had guests on before who are friends. I've had a lot of friends on, but mostly people I've met through my work or online. And I think that you're actually the first person that I share some serious real life history with. And I want to talk to you about all the work that you do today with your intuitive painting. But let's get some good background first. My first memories of you were when we were in high school and doing door-to-door missionary work. So we called it literature evangelism. And this was not a job where you could phone it in. Like, it was really work. Knocking on random strangers' doors and trying to sell them books about Jesus and health. So obviously both come a long way since then. But do you recall what it was that drew you to that work in the first place?
Well, as you're saying all of that, I find it kind of ironic because although we're not like going door to door with the same kind of content, I feel like at least for me, like it's kind of similar to like feeling like I want to boldly kind of go out there in a way, in the sense that it's uncomfortable, but also really important.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think it was partly that, like it felt like it was something bigger than myself.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And did you find a sense of fulfillment in it? Like you were really out there doing something important?
Moments of it, yeah. I mean, there was a lot of discomfort that I had with it, probably more than comfort.
Yeah, in what way? Like talking to strangers or
Yeah, talking to strangers, honestly, like selling something or sharing something that I really hadn't read or really like I kind of had read little bits, but I never read all the books. I never like we had a cookbook too, you know,
Yeah.
and I remember like I can go back in my mind and see all the pictures and the different little recipes, but I never cooked out of it.
Oh, that's so interesting. So then did you feel a sort of guilt or a disconnect? So for
Yeah, I think it was like a disconnect of like, these are like at the time, like, okay, these are really important and I need to share them and this will change your life. But I had not experienced that myself with it. So then it felt kind of like, what, like a little bit of a fraud. And
Mm, that's so
um,
interesting. And for people who
yeah,
haven't heard me talk about this before, we were both in the Seventh day Adventist boarding school sort of situation. And the books were from the church's prophet, Ellen White. And
hmm,
so did you have a period growing up in the Adventist church where you did connect with it? So obviously this was in high school and up until that point
yeah,
hadn't really felt like it had been a sort of transformative part of your life. Was it ever?
not really.
Wow, that's so interesting. So you just felt a pull to something like
Yeah,
yourself or
greater than myself. Yeah, and it's not that I had like this um the disconnection came from like disagreeing with it. It honestly, like the little bits that I read, it was so hard for me to understand and connect with.
Mhm.
And so I just, and maybe it, you know, partly was just because that's being really a lot younger. I wasn't of interest in any way.
Mm,
But I was just, yeah, it was the being called to do something greater than myself that felt really important. And I felt like the outside voices were telling me that that's what was important.
right.
And so I was like, okay, I'm here. I'm going to do this. I'm, you know, I really am humbly wanting to go out there. But going out there with something that you're not connected with can, I don't know, it doesn't have a lot of as much meaning.
Right. Did people ever ask you questions that you weren't comfortable answering?
The funny thing is, people never asked me questions about stuff in the books. It was more
Hmm.
like asking me kind of like philosophical questions or things that I thought or believed. And that came out a lot more easily because I think at the core of it, what I believed then is exactly what I believe now is that, like, you know, love is the greatest thing of all. And so at the time, I really did kind of associate that with love because that's what the outside voices again were telling me.
Mm.
And I think there is some love to it too. I'm not, you know, or just a bunch of humans trying to figure it out. But yeah, sorry, I can't remember what your question was.
No, that's okay. And my questions can be really like long and contain many, many parts. So we often had to get up in front of church. I'm remembering, like, this is just coming to me now.
Yes.
Testimonials, like, I know it's so awful.
Oh,
Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I often opted to sing. Like, I could do the special music. I would say I would sing the
I
song.
know. I was so jealous that you could do that. I was like,
I
oh,
never gave like two testimonials ever. But did you ever have to get up there and did you feel like you were saying something that you didn't really believe or just saying what you felt like people wanted to hear?
I was just honestly sharing stories. Like that I had had with people, like different experiences. I a lot of times felt just extremely nervous getting up there. And I think it was maybe the expectation of, or feeling the expectation of myself, and then maybe what other people wanted to hear. But I was like, this is just the story that I have. And so I didn't know how to share anything else other than that.
Right.
So I would share the story. But I mean, it was, of course, it was like completely uncomfortable, especially I think a lot of high schoolers are uncomfortable with public speaking.
Yeah.
So there's that element to it as well. But in a good way, it did push me outside of my comfort zone. And I think one of the biggest lessons of my life is learning and letting my throat be like this portal where, love comes out of and information comes out of. It has even shown up in like my human design chart.
Uh-huh.
And so I think it's cool in the sense that I was doing that work and using my voice a lot, even though it was so uncomfortable.
Right. Well, it was just too like kind of limited, like you're talking about love and information.
Yeah.
Limited as far as information about what love is or what God is. And so it makes sense that your natural expression of love would be limited too, because there was still just a lot to learn about
So much. Yeah.
about life. I want to stop though on the human design thing because we both get really nerdy about that.
Yeah.
How does the throat voice expression piece play out in your human design chart? And you're a
manifester. That's like the I can't remember what it's called, but like that's the portal or the gate that's like has like a full line of open expression. And so when my friend, who's actually like pretty darn good at reading other people's charts, I was the one that told her about it. So like, I love this so much. I'm even thinking about maybe I'll get trained in it. And I told her about it. And then she's just like exploded with it. And I'm like, okay, now you are the one that's supposed to get trained in it. I think I just passed on the baton and I'm happy with that.
Totally. Oh, I've totally had that experience where I'm like briefly bursting with excitement about something and I have somebody that I want to share with, and all of a sudden I totally lost interest. And I'm like, oh,
yep.
And then they get onto it and that's like their thing.
Yeah. I was some carrier or something. Yeah. Anyway, she was the one that she was like, oh my God, Lindsay, your throat, that's where things are channeling.
Yeah, you talked about this in a post on Instagram about the importance of using your voice and aligning with love. You talked about that, and then how in doing that, it might not make you the most agreeable person or make everybody like you, but why do you still feel like it's so important? So for you, obviously, there's that really direct connection, but why do you feel like it's important in general, learning to use our voice?
Oh, because it's such a powerful tool. And if not for others, for ourselves, because I kind of think about it like if you've ever had an experience where you're in a counseling session or therapy session and someone asks you a question and you respond and you're hearing yourself out loud and you're like, oh my goodness, I never thought of it that way. Or wow, I can't believe that just came out. It's in your voice, like the actual physical expression of your voice, that you yourself can hear things that need to be unpacked or need to be seen. And so I think it's such an incredible tool that we don't think about using for self-love even.
You're so right. Because we're taught to be agreeable, really, and to be polite and to be good and not to speak over people, which has its merits. But I totally see that. I see that in my clients, the stuff that comes out of them just by talking. And then I see it in me, like as the coach stuff will come out and I'm like, I think maybe it's, I needed that too. Or how did I even know that? But like, until that channel is open and flowing, like there was no way for that to come out. I really love the way that you put that. And I also love the word that you use, tool, because you use that in describing the body. I had pulled a quote from you somewhere, your website or Instagram, where you describe the body as an incredible and intelligent tool guiding us on our journeys and in this life. So I'm curious how do you use that? How do you what's your elaboration on that? I'm always curious how people describe their relationship with their bodies or their relationship with listening to their bodies. So how do you listen to your body, and how do you relate with your body as a tool?
Okay, well, that's like I'm going to say it's a two-part answer.
Okay.
So I don't get lost and forget that I have two parts to that.
Okay.
Um, the first part, I actually was having a conversation with my friend the other day about this, and I was using the metaphor of like our physical body as almost like a computer system,
Mhm.
and how like our soul has kind of come into this vessel or this computer system that's extremely intelligent. And our soul has this mission on earth that we're going to do all these things, and we chose this specific software,
Mm.
meaning like our personality or our human design or our zodiac or whatever. This is like what my soul choose to be in this lifetime, this software, this computer system, to do the thing that I need to do. And sometimes if there's like I'm feeling like depleted or I'm feeling really down, my computer system is going to come up with like an alert, or like it's bogged down with like, cookies or whatever they call it, like some kind of virus, to tell me like, okay, something's not functioning right. You need to clear some stuff out, or you need to update the system, or you need to, I don't know, just take care of it in some way. And I think about this a lot with people that are really, really trying to step away, or myself included in the past or in small ways now, like kind of wanting to get away from things that are uncomfortable, and how you can numb out in things that you put into your body, or not even things that you put into your body. It's just like ways that you're like, okay, I don't want to feel this discomfort. And so as you're doing that and you're putting kind of band-aids over things that need to be looked at, then your computer system is just going to get slower,
Yes.
and you're gonna be like, oh, why isn't this working quicker? Like I'm trying to click on this tab and it's just the spinny wheel is taking like forever, and I'm so annoyed. And it can only do so much with what we're doing with it and how we're taking care of it.
Right. And if we let the alerts and the messages kind of keep building up and building up, then we
Mm-hmm.
get that spinny thing. Things kind of go a little crazy because we haven't been getting the messages.
Yeah.
We've been numbing.
Yeah, we've been numbing.
Or
And so
band-aiding, or
what do you say?
or distracting, or band-aiding, or
Yeah.
words that you could use.
Yeah. And then the other part to that question is, I'm not perfect at it. I'm still learning like how to listen. And, actually this week is a really good example. I've been feeling really low energy, really depleted. I had like a really busy and full holiday, and it wasn't bad or good. I mean, it was great actually, but it wasn't bad. It was just like there was so much that I was being inundated with. I think my system just takes a little bit longer to kind of recalibrate, and kind of like taking a deep breath and being okay with that, and not letting myself feel guilty,
Yes.
because it's so, oh my goodness. I mean, my house, like I'm looking around, I'm like, oh my, it's such a reflection of how I'm feeling right now, which is like kind of slogging through the week, feeling kind of cloudy, maybe fighting off a little bit of a bug. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, you know what? It's okay. It is totally okay. And I know that this isn't going to last forever. And I'm going to call in my support team. And this is a moment for me to like ask for help.
Yes.
And that is also beautiful too, because I have to remind myself I'm so independent
Mm.
that it is a gift to ask for help to the other person, because then they feel needed as well. Or
Yes.
to my support team, like unseen support team, like, okay, guys, I need your help.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think that admitting we're not limitless, like our energy has edges and there's time to
Yeah.
rest and, like you said, time to pull out and ask for help. Oh man, I want to go 5 directions with questions. Um, okay, that reminds me of what you were talking about. So, like reaching out for help, knowing when you need that, and your word of the year. And we talked about this when we first went to lunch, and we talked about having this conversation about how you choose a word every year. I'm just going to let you talk about that because I got really excited about it because I do a similar thing.
Yeah. And I think it's so cool. I've been noticing like more and more and more people that are doing that instead of like resolutions or
Yes,
goals. And I'm like, oh,
exactly.
yes, I love seeing like shift happening.
Resolutions anymore. I'm so out of the world of resolutions that I'm like, do people still do that? That's old, right? Like we don't do that anymore. But
Yeah. But I mean, I think they're all smart.
yeah,
they're, I, yeah. But I'm like so excited when I see shifts like that happening, because I think it's just so much more loving and limitless and
well, it's
open for
connected.
possibility.
Like it's connected. I feel like when we go with goals, very often it's a like, how is this going to look? How is this going to
Hmm.
make me look to the outside world? What is it that I think that I want? What is it have I been that I've been trained to want versus like what actually feels good and right in my bones, in my being? What's going
Hmm.
forward? What lights me up when I think about it? And I think that's maybe how you described one of these words. Like it fit in. It felt just right for this time.
Yeah. Yeah. So my word last year was power. And I chose that word because I had so much discomfort around it. I associated power with like um, ego and like power over someone, so an oppressor, or um, just yeah, like something that was greater than everybody else. And so I was like, okay, I hear the word power combined with other words that totally feel beautiful to me, like the power of kindness, or the power of love, or the power of generosity, and all of those things. Are like, I really need to get curious about this word and see what it has to show me, because I don't want to associate power as this negative thing, especially when I'm trying to grow and expand. And at the core, I feel like that's very powerful.
Mm.
And so, what kind of revealed itself, or like unfolded for me, was just like this really, really loving the power of like understanding yourself, and the power of like seeing all the many layers of yourself. And I think it's a word that is still like kind of like an addendum to the rest of my words in the future, because it's not something that's going to end. There's beautiful millions of little layers to each of us. And so I want to kind of keep that at the forefront. But I became so much more um, kind of comfortable within my own being for things, within things that I didn't feel comfortable with before.
Mm.
And as like November kind of came around, I was like, okay, this is the time where I'm going to just start thinking on how power is going to kind of wrap up this year in a big way and call in my new word. And I was just kind of meditating with it, like thinking about it randomly when I drive to work, and there were a couple words that came in. One was community. I was like, okay, that kind of makes sense. Like I'm ready to kind of feel like, as I'm seeing more of myself, allowing myself to be seen by other people and working with other people. And then as I heard myself say, like, working with other people, I had this ping of like, collaborate, collaborate, collaborate. And it was like, okay, great. That's a great word, but I'm just going to let I'm just going to put it to the side, set it on the counter, and keep like being open in case some other words come in as well. And there was definitely not any other words that were coming in. It was just that. And I really learned how to distinguish between, um, I guess, my personality voice or my mind voice and that other voice that I hear that is really strong and loving and persistent.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the voice that kept saying, no, you're ready to collaborate. And I don't think I know I wasn't ready for that word in the past because I was so unsure of myself in a lot of ways. And I don't know that anybody else could see it, but I definitely could see it. So I would have people emailing me, wanting to do different projects and be like, yeah, sure. But nothing ever really materialized because I wasn't coming at it with I just wasn't aligned with it. It didn't feel like I was ready. It felt so scary. I didn't know what I could really truly give. And I was like, I'm going to let that person down and I'm going to let myself down. And that feels way too painful.
Mm-hmm.
And not that I could still let somebody else down and let myself down because who knows what a future project could be. But I've also learned that, that's okay. That doesn't define my self-worth. And I have tools now that are so loving. And really, if I want to be a tool and used as a tool and a channel, then I can't pre-think about things too much. I just have to show up and let things kind of unfold as they should.
Well, and I think that, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just going to say, if it feels like aligned.
I'm sorry, one more time?
If it feels aligned,
yes. Yeah. And I feel like you're like the draw towards power, because I had told you that was one of my words the other year.
Yeah.
Really set you up for the potential to collaborate, because I know you were describing power, and I remember trying to tell Brittany about it. This was one of my words, and she kind of like flinched a little bit, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a word that people associate with being above people or being superior, and that's not what it is at all. It's I think it's as simple as what you're saying, being centered in yourself so that you can take the risk of maybe letting somebody down or maybe failing or maybe not being as good as you wanted it to be or doing the scary thing, and that's okay. Like you're so rooted enough in your core, in your center, that you can keep going, and we have to have that. We have to have that resiliency to be able to do anything, express, use our voice. I think anything that we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
Do you find that it's been, I'm thinking back now to the beginning of our conversation and the going door to door, and essentially that was in so many ways somebody else's voice. It was like the church's voice filtered through teenagers that were going door to door, but like the spark of you that wanted something bigger and that saw love and everything was in there. Obviously, like the seeds of who you are was in there. What was your journey like from being in sort of really this conservative church and this very committed lifestyle of spreading the message of whatever you thought that God was, to where you are now? Like, was it difficult? When did you start to realize, like, I don't know if I believe this quite this way, or I don't know if I believe what my family believes? And was that a hard transition?
Yeah. I mean, yes and no. I feel like it happened like really gently and organically. And I think that was on purpose just because I am so sensitive and kind of need things to be that way. And not always, but I think in this context, that was such a gift that was given to me. I would say the major shift happened after I quit. After college, I worked for the Adventist system as a teacher, and I did that for 3 years. And it was honestly, in a lot of ways, it was a really great experience because I got to be this preschool director and kind of form the curriculum and the program how I wanted to. And I had, some teacher's assistants that also were able to help me a lot as well. So it didn't all fall on me, but it was a really, really big job. And, but at the same time, so I was working like so hard, putting my blood, sweat, and tears into this because, again, I felt like I was doing something that was so much bigger than myself. Like, I think working with small children is such a huge responsibility because that's so much of when the subconscious beliefs are formed. And I care so deeply about instilling like genuine like self-love and helping them not to like get discouraged if they were working on a project or a task that was more difficult for them than it was maybe for their friend. Or if they were having a day where they felt really anxious and had a hard time keeping their hands to themselves, like preschoolers' bodies can be like all over the place. And so helping to kind of shift into the awareness of like why we, kind of keep our bodies to ourselves until we're invited. I started just doing like a lot of like Montessori stuff. And anyway, it was really beautiful, but I was working so hard. And then also at the same time, feeling really, really underappreciated by the people that I was working for and getting paid hardly anything. And granted, this was during the recession, but we had like, the school was doing better than it had in the past in a lot of ways, of having like a huge wait list. And I wouldn't say it was because of me. I think it's just, it's a really big business. And a lot of parents are looking for preschools that they feel like safe sending their children to. And it was a super safe environment. And so not feeling appreciated, hardly making any money, like barely scraping by. I had massive student loan debts. And that was just really weighing on me. And finally I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like won't have anything to give. I'm crumbling. And after that school year finished, I gave my resignation, and there was something in like leaving that job that I felt like, because of things that were said to me that were kind of painful and hurtful, I was like, I can't, there's so much double standard that's happening, and it just doesn't feel loving to me. And I had it like, honestly, for me, I didn't really have like this horrible negative experience growing up in the conservative church that I did. Now I'm kind of discovering layers of it that I'm like, oh, that's where that thought comes, or oh, that's where that thought comes. But I didn't have like trauma around how I grew up in the church.
Yeah.
Thankfully,
Yeah, people certainly have.
Yeah, exactly. And, like I said, I'm finding layers of myself that have like maybe a negative voice that is from that way of thought. But I
think it is trauma, but I think it's subtler.
Yeah, exactly.
Recognize it as trauma.
Yeah, I think that's a really good way to put it. And so I was just kind of coming to terms with all of that. And I just felt like I had to protect myself. And so I was like, I don't want to have like all these negative feelings towards a whole organization or a whole group of people, because I feel like each person is so individual. And so it's like, I just have to separate myself completely. And that was just how it kind of unfolded in my thoughts at that time. It was really painful because I kind of felt like I was breaking up with a part of my identity.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. And became a hairstylist, which was also really creative. And I met so many amazing clients, and in like lots of one-on-one conversations with them and with me, and seeing all like different types of thoughts and beautiful stories, and also using my voice a lot more. I just organically kind of found myself moving in this different direction, and you know, it just kind of happened.
And
And now I feel so far removed, almost like, I don't know if you can relate to this, but where I look back at that time and I'm like, that was, I know the core of me is still me and it was there all along, but I'm like, who was that girl? I don't
oh,
even really like, I feel like it was two different lifetimes.
yeah, 100%. Like in the same way, I feel like I look back and I'm like, well, I was always there. Kind of like I was saying earlier with the seeds, like the seeds of me were there trying to get some sort of nourishment and was kind of getting starved and unable to grow. And I think that's a sad thing that I see in religion. And this obviously like is not a blanket for everything, but I feel like in religion, people see like I have the answers, and so I don't necessarily need to grow or look for anything else. And so it's kind of
Hmm.
this stagnant. Um, I want to say like ball of drama. So much drama happens in church. I feel like you get in part because
Yeah.
people weren't growing. But then you grow lifetimes as you step out of that. If you're soft and open, like
Hmm.
you can go the hardened route of like
Yeah.
and angry and rejecting. And if you feel those things like anger and such, we need to process that absolutely. But you don't want to live closed off like that. Not really.
Yeah.
Um,
And
yeah, go ahead.
now I just feel like all I see from a lot of people that are really in such a restricted box, if you will, is there's just so much. I my my heart just feels like achy a little bit for them, not because they're less than in any way, but because they're just in so much fear. And I understand, like, this is just the controlled environment that they need because it feels safe. And
Yes.
outside of that is, you know, horrible, horrible, scary things like, I don't, demons and devils. And
Exactly.
I don't really even know how to put it another way. And although, there are like dark things in the world, there's so much beauty and so much lightness that my eyes have been exposed to. Like, there is so much more light than there is darkness.
And I think a lot of the darkness just needs light shed on it. Like I don't think it's
Yes.
truly evil or,
Yeah.
it's limited. It's in a dark place because we're not seeing all of it.
Yes. It's some computer systems that are just really malfunctioning.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And which reminds me of how you were talking about the preschoolers and sort of the subconscious things that get seeded into us as little ones. And in general, we all grow up with all of this
Hmm.
subconscious stuff, beliefs about ourselves that aren't true, beliefs about life that aren't true, and that ends up causing us a lot of pain over the years. And I work with that through people's relationship with food and their body. And I know that you
Hmm.
talked about, you said like painting the relationship between the subconscious and the surface or what we see. what
Hmm.
what is your experience of that?
Like, as I'm painting, you mean? Or,
Yeah, like what do you mean when you say that? Because I am not an artist in that way at all. So I guess I'm curious about your process and how you're working with human emotions and the human spirit and like what all goes into that for you. I'm saying
yeah.
it may not even make sense because your world is so foreign and magical to me.
Thank you. Um, I I don't know. I guess I feel like so much of what, and maybe it's a metaphor for like the shadow and lightning being need to be being shed on it. Excuse me. Is like things that are unseen that need form,
Mm.
and moments or marks or subtleties that are intentional and delicate that make you like stop and pause because you're like, wow, that is so simple, but why have I feel drawn to pause and really look at it.
Mm.
And I think that's a metaphor for kind of like what you were saying with like the more subtle traumas that you might have experienced.
Yeah.
Like, there's certain little delicate intricacies that are just like begging to be seen.
Mm.
And I think that's one of the things that I'm so drawn to in painting are like the really like soft areas with like a really sharp but delicate edge, and how that can, even though it might be soft or have this sharp edge, it's, you know, both can coexist, and it's powerful to like see, and then stopping and breathing with something. And I think breathing with beauty is so nourishing. I think we look at beauty so often as like this frivolous or vain thing to fill our ego, but I honestly think it's one of the greatest gifts that we're given. And subconsciously, I think we all believe that. That's why we're drawn to beauty.
Well, I think it's a human need.
Yes,
I think
I really do too. I mean, just look at flowers. That's such a like great example of that. Like they're kind of fleeting. They're only there for a moment, but people spend massive amounts of money on flowers, like at events and things, because like it draws you in some way. And I don't know, they're beautiful.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things there doesn't have to be, and maybe there isn't any sort of, or maybe there is scientific logical explanation why we're drawn to beauty. There probably is. But in
Yeah.
general, I think it's more of a feeling thing. And art, like when you look at art that pulls on you, like I don't know what the logical reason for that is. Sometimes things just they tug. Were you always an artist growing up through all of this?
Yeah. I mean, I would consider myself an artist growing up through all of this, even if it wasn't like super like sophisticated in any way. But even as like a little girl, my mom was always saying like, you were always begging to like make something or create something. And so she was really great in nurturing that for me. And she had like a million craft books, and I would paint and I would color, and I did other forms of art, as like she had me in like ballet, and I was homeschooled for several years too. So we had, yeah. So there was a lot of flexibility in time, and like I would do school at home, but then she would also have me enrolled in like other like classes, so that I had time with, other kids as well. And so I would have an art class, like I said, and then a ballet class or tap dancing class. We also did this. I did tons of music stuff. And I remember going to, this was like the coolest thing. We went to how an opera was made, and like all the behind the scenes stuff with the costuming and the makeup and the music. And it was so cool. And we didn't have a lot of money growing up. So, I mean, this was just like a huge, like expansive world that she was able to show me, because, she sacrificed in a lot of ways and taught me at home. But yeah, I was always making, always creating, in so many different forms. And then I think it was in, I would say high school, like freshman year, that I started kind of being drawn more specifically to painting. And then especially in like high or senior year. And my senior year, I so desperately wanted to go to art school, but my parents were like, how are you going to survive? You're going to pay all this money and then you're going to have no job. And I think they, had some fear around that too, because they really wanted me to go to an Adventist school. And, although, that was kind of a fearful thought, I think it also came from a place of love too, because they just wanted the best for me.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
And in a lot of ways, I'm really glad that I did, because it's led me to where I am now. But yeah, I look back and I'm like, I wonder what would have happened if I would have gone to art school, or if I would have had like as nurturing of an experience with my creativity being in art school. I did where I was at. Because I had amazing art teachers here. And I wasn't an art major. I was an art minor and an elementary ed major.
And it really has led you to everything that you're doing today.
Mm-hmm.
I've wanted to ask you about your soul essence paintings.
Yeah.
This is the primary thing that you do now, right?
It's a big part. It's not the primary, but it's a big part of my studio practice.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that specifically, but give me like the overall of what you do and what you offer, and then talk to me about the soul essence paintings.
So like the overall of like what I do in my studio.
Yeah, like do you have galleries? Like I know we've talked about this before, but like what's currently happening?
Yeah, like I have I don't have any shows up right now, but I've had some shows in the past, mostly locally, and then I had one in Portland this last fall, which was really fun.
Can I tell you that I'm in Portland right now?
No, you didn't.
This is the first, I don't know what the quality is like, but this is the first podcast interview I've done outside of my home.
Oh, well, you sound great to me. Right now.
So you had a show in Portland.
That's so cool. Yeah, I had a show in Portland at a little, it was like a kind of like a beauty boutique sort of. They sell some products, and they also do like beautiful eyebrow stuff, and then they have their space is really lovely because they have all this like service stuff that they do, and then they have these like gallery type walls because Portland is such a like supporter of the arts, and I feel like every shop you go into, they also want to have like a little mini gallery, so it's great because there's lots of opportunity for artists in that there. And then I've had shows locally as well, and I have some coming up in the future at a shop and a winery.
Awesome.
And then as far as like in my studio, I mean, I really love just sharing my work online so much because it feels like, I know it sounds weird, but I almost feel like I have more connection with the people that are interested in it. We kind of communicate more, and I get to kind of share the process a little bit more intimately. Whereas like if the show's up, that's lovely because I do think there is a difference of seeing it in person, especially since I have a lot of delicate details in the work than online, but I don't get to have like the one-on-one with people like I do online.
Right.
And so I have my website that was newly relaunched, and that felt really exciting and also a little bit scary because I was like, you know what, I'm not going to hide behind anything anymore. Like what I believe and the work that I'm doing,
that is true. You're very out in the world, very clear and vocal, and your website is so you. It's so beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
And I told you this, like the words on your front page, the first time I read them, because they're intermingled with other, it's just like little bits of words at a time. And I was like, oh, that's so beautiful. I wonder where she got that. And then I was like, wait, did she write that? I really just, yeah. And well, maybe I'll ask you about that later. I was curious because you had mentioned I always call them tarot cards, and they're not.
Yeah, I don't know what they are, like affirmation cards, or
that you ended up putting those phrases, or they came from your affirmation cards that are not like a thing, but you made a set for yourself.
Yes,
I still want it, and this is not usually something I'm super into owning. Like their crystals and their cards, and there's like I'm not really into it, but I saw what you've done with that, and I'm like, oh, give me a set. They're beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I feel like I've had, which is just, I'm so thankful to God and the universe for this, but I feel like I've had so much confirmation and people saying like, oh my word, I've never been drawn to this before, and I want that, I want that, I want that. And I still have to figure out like how to move it out of my studio from my little handmade raw deck to having it printed and packaged, and that all sounds, so I'm putting that out there if anyone wants to help me with that, like
you're a collaboration, you just might find
exactly like that. this thing where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna be okay with, like, I started the domino effect of this, and I'm gonna see how I'm supported in it following through.
Yeah.
And that's something else that shows up with my human design chart is I'm like this idea, like, person, but it's really hard to, like, I need other helpers
Mm.
to, I need generators
Yeah.
to help me with the rest of it. I don't know what that means, but yeah, I'm putting it out there.
I think it's really beautiful. I think it's a normal part of our growth to go through a period of working, kind of wanting to do things yourself, or being like, I don't need people. I'm independent, and independence, of
Mm-hmm.
course, we need that. I think we naturally need to develop that in ourselves. And then I think it's like independence to interdependence it's like the same as your power into, what was your word, collaboration?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, power into collaboration. Like, I think eventually the more mature expression of single independence is like independent people working together, because we do need each other.
Mm-hmm. And now that feels so freeing. I'm like,
Yes.
okay, if I were to just allow this to be, like, I can come up with these great ideas, and then I can have these amazing, beautiful people that are going to help me with them. That feels like I could come up with a million more ideas, and that feels exciting. Whereas if I, like, think about, like, okay, how am I going to take this one idea from point A to point Z? It makes me feel so weighted down, like almost to the point where I feel paralyzed and I won't do anything with it. And then I feel so, like, bad and guilty and, like, unworthy of having an idea at
Exactly. No,
all.
we're not meant to do everything. I really feel like,
No.
and sometimes I think I'm crazy for feeling this, but I really feel like if we all just did what we were excited about, and obviously, like, there are things that need to be done and we need discipline and all of this stuff, great and fine, but like we were following the core of what we love, everything would get done. Like, there would be a place for everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
So
So anyway, those words on on the cards that um, honestly, I feel like those words channel through. Because I read them myself and I'm like, wow, I don't feel like those are my words, and they feel like they're blessing me as well. And so when my really good friend was the one that really helped bring the website to life for me. She knows me really well, and I kind of went over the aesthetic and what I wanted, and it's like, okay, I'm going to give you creative license too, because I have to go to work, and I like my other job, and I can't be here the whole time. And she was the one that was like, I had told her I wanted words or quotes, and I was going to get her some, but I hadn't done that yet. And she was like, I feel like she needs to have, like, words from her deck on there. And so she just randomly pulled words and put them on there. And when I came to look at it, she's like, is this okay? You can totally change it if you want. What do you feel about this? And I was like, oh my word. I don't know why that, like, never occurred to me, but and those words are perfect. Like, yes, like,
yeah.
it's done.
Yeah, no, it's so perfect. And so on there also, you work with people one on one. Is that how the soul essence?
Yeah. Yeah. And so that is, like, the process of that is also, like, kind of like what I was saying with earlier, when you're in a counseling appointment where someone might be asking you questions and you're hearing yourself say something, how that can be so profound, hearing yourself express. And so I think because that's, like, using the voice is such a big part of self-love as a tool, I wanted that to be part of the process. And so I asked, like, a series of questions, and as they're responding, I'm also painting. And the exact, like, let's say I was to ask you this isn't one of the questions, but I would say, like, what's your name? And you tell me, oh, my name is Randy. And I make a mark. That mark doesn't necessarily mean Randy or, like, the exact thing that you said. I'm just using this, like, dialogue that's happening as a way for us to connect on a higher soul level. And then I'm just channeling Mark. And that was like the hardest thing is I knew I would have to do stepping into this is not having a preconceived idea of what I think it should look like or the colors that I was going to use.
Mm-hmm.
And just really being open to whatever is supposed to come through is supposed to come through. And so, yeah, that conversation is kind of just a way for us to connect. And then I'm painting. And then at the end of it, I feel like the title is kind of like something that's channeled through as well. And I do like a small reading off of like what comes up for me. But the whole point of it is for you, the person, to see a reflection of love and beauty because that is their true essence.
Do people look at their paintings and cry?
Yes.
I feel like that would, I don't know, I just kind of got chills as I was listening to you. I don't know how that wouldn't happen.
Yes. And I've had a variety of experiences. Some people cry, some people look at it and they're really surprised. Another story is I had someone that I did this with, and she was kind of going through like a difficult time of feeling really depleted, really burnt out, unhealthy. I think based on what she was telling me, a lot of like negative self-talk. And so when she saw her painting after we were done, she had like a really good experience with the talking part of it. But then when she saw her painting, she didn't like it. And it was really, or she just didn't feel connected to it at all. And so, she didn't even take the painting with her. I kept the painting. And then several months later, she had her parents have sessions with me separately, which was really cool. Because she was like, I think it'd be really cool and they'd really love it. And she was definitely a supporter of the whole process and that it was important. And so I did her parents' paintings, and she's like, do you still have my painting? And I was like, yeah. Would you like to see it? Like kind of nervous, because this was also a really good lesson in reminding myself like, okay, this isn't my ego. This is something else that's coming through. And if someone doesn't like what they see, like I have to be okay with that and not question the work, because I know that it's been validated and that it's just all the setup around it is so special. And I know at my core that it's true. So anyway, so she looks at her painting again and she kind of was like, oh my word. She's like, this is the painting? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, I cannot believe it. She's like, this is the most beautiful one I've ever seen. And in that span of time, she had been doing so much healing, so much more like self-love. And so then when she saw it again, I feel like she was almost like ready to see it in a way, or I don't even know if I would say ready to see it. She just saw it with different eyes, like just loving eyes. And it was I think it was one of the most powerful experiences in this whole process, because it just really confirmed, like healing and self-love and how it can transform us, and that what I was doing is true.
That is so cool. I don't know if this would be an appropriate thing to do or if people would be into it, but I feel like it would be so cool to see a video of you doing this with somebody. And obviously somebody would have to be open to be like asked these questions and have it recorded, but like see it from your angle and see the painting.
Oh yeah.
I would really enjoy that. I don't know if you find somebody who's game for that, but I think that would be a really cool idea.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Are you game for it?
I totally would. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we should do
Totally,
it
let's
together.
do it. Okay, let's talk. We'll talk after this.
Yeah.
Well, I definitely want to send everybody your way, and we'll have all of the links to all of your work. The last question that I always ask on the podcast is basically just how do you define a free spirit? Because for me, it's just, I think, getting to be yourself, like your pure essence flowing through you, natural expression. How do you define it for yourself?
When I feel like truly in my body and I'm feeling really good, I feel so free.
Mm.
Because I think the things that make me not feel free are when I start putting like expectations on myself, or
Mm.
um, I'm not validating something that wants to be seen, or I'm feeling anxious in a setting because I haven't set clear boundaries. And why that doesn't make me feel free, like in the physical sense, is my body reacts to it so quickly. Like my neck and my shoulder will tighten up so much that I can't even do the thing that I love to do. It becomes so, my body just feels so painful. And so when I'm feeling like free of that, like I'm not having that happen, then I feel so free and I feel so joyful, and I'm not worried about what's coming in or what's not coming in. I just feel good. And that feels free to me.
I love that so much. And it's because it's not just about feeling good, it's about honoring what comes through. So you're not ignoring the tension or the
Yeah.
anxiety or the thing that you really need to express or the boundary that you need to set, but you have to work through it in order to. Guru Singh says this, you know Guru Singh,
Yeah.
that our natural state is joy. But if something's
Yeah.
there that's not joy, we need to go into that, look at that, process that, so that
Mm-hmm.
we can return to the natural state.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thank you so
And
much. Oh yeah, what were you gonna say?
no, I'm done. I'm
Okay.
good.
This was really such a joy and a pleasure. I feel so happy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for asking such beautiful and lovely questions and allowing me to feel safe to express as well.
Oh, my pleasure. And there's stuff that I didn't even get to, and I feel like we could do this painting thing. So there might be stuff to come. There could be a
I love it. Awesome.
I hope you enjoyed this conversation. For more on food and body freedom, get my free ebook, The Eat to Feel Good Diet, by signing up for newsletter updates at freespirit-academy.com. I will be back with you next week.